related to knowledge of self-determination. So today I'm back with some more Black History Every Day. Now this is actually for yesterday, February the 18th. I didn't get a chance to get to it yesterday, and when I would have gotten to it, it would have already been today anyway. So today we're going to be talking about Toni Morrison, 1931. Toni Morrison, Pulitzer Prize winning author, is born in Lorain, Ohio. And Toni Morrison is an amazing woman. She has a large body of work. Um, I could do a video just on her books alone. I could do a separate video just on her awards alone. Um, this woman has had an amazingly long career and an amazing career period. She's been honored so many times. I mean, it's phenomenal what she's done with her life. But I'm gonna go ahead and get to um, giving you some of her backstory. Toni Morrison, born Chloe Ardelia Wolford, February 18th, 1931, is an American novelist, editor, and professor emeritus at Princeton University. Her novels are known for their epic themes, vivid dialogue, and richly detailed characters. Among her best-known novels are The Bluest Eye, 1970, Sula, 1973, Song of Solomon, 1977, and Beloved, 1987, in which was actually made into a movie starring Oprah Winfrey and Danny Glover. Morrison won the Pulitzer Prize and the American Book Award in 1988 for Beloved. Beloved was adapted into a film of the same name, as I just stated, starring Oprah Winfrey and Danny Glover in 1998. Morrison was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1993. In 1996, the National Endowment for the Humanities selected her for the Jefferson Lecture, the U.S. federal government's highest honor for achievement in the humanities. She was honored with the 1996 Book Foundation's Medal of Distinguished Contribution to American Letters. Morrison was commissioned to write the libretto for a new opera, Margaret Garner, first performed in 2005. On May 29, 2012, Morrison received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. In 2016, Morrison received the Penn Saul Bellow Award for Achievement in American Fiction. Let's see. Toni Morrison was born in Lorain, Ohio, to Rama and George Wolford. She is the second of 4 children in a working-class family. Her parents moved to Ohio to escape Southern racism and instilled a sense of heritage through telling traditional African-American folk tales. She read frequently as a child. Among her favorite authors were Jane Austen and Leo Tolstoy. She became a Catholic at the age of 12 and received the baptismal name Anthony, which later became the basis for her nickname, Toni. In 1949, Morrison enrolled at Howard University. She graduated in 1953 with a BA in English and earned a Master's of Arts from Cornell University in 1955. Her master's thesis was Virginia Woolf's and William Faulkner's treatment of the alienated. She taught English first at Texas Southern University in Houston for 2 years, then at Howard for 7. While teaching at Howard, she met Harold Morrison, a Jamaican architect, whom she married in 1958. The couple had 2 children and divorced in 1964. After the breakup of her marriage, she began working as an editor in 1965 for a textbook publisher in Syracuse, going on 2 years later at Random House in New York, where she became a senior trade book editor. In that capacity, Morrison played a vital role in bringing back literature into the mainstream, editing books by authors such as Henry Dumas, Toni Cade Bambara, Angela Davis, and Gail Jones. Morrison began writing fiction as part of an informal group of poets and writers at Howard University who met to discuss their work. She attended one meeting with a short story about a black girl who longed to have blue eyes. She later developed the story as her first novel, The Bluest Eye, 1970. She wrote it while raising 2 children and teaching at Howard. In 1975, her novel, Sula, 1973, was nominated for the National Book Award. Her third novel, Song of Solomon, 1977, brought her national attention. The book was a main selection of the Book of the Month Club, the first novel by a black writer to be chosen since Richard Wright's Native Son in 1940. Song of Solomon won the National Book Critics Circle Award. In 1987, Morrison's novel Beloved, inspired by the true story of a runaway slave, Margaret Garner, became a critical success. When the novel failed to win the National Book Award as well as the National Book Critics Circle Award, 48 black critics and writers protested the omission in a statement that was published in the New York Times on January 24, 1988. Not long afterwards, Beloved won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction and the American Book Award. It also won an Anisfield Wolf Book Award. The same year, Morrison took a visiting professorship at Bard College. She was adapted into the 1998 film of the same name starring Oprah Winfrey. Beloved was adapted, which we already know. Morrison later returned to Garner's life story in the libretto for a new opera, Margaret Garner, with music by Richard Danielpour, which we already know that as well. Let's see. This is actually information from a different site, so I'll skip ahead because some of it we've already read. In May 2006, the New York Times Book Review named Beloved the best American novel published in the previous 25 years. In 1993, Morrison was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. Her citation reads, Toni Morrison, quote, who in novels characterized by visionary force and poetic import, gives life to an essential aspect of American reality, end quote. Shortly afterward, a fire destroyed her Rockland County, New York home. Morrison taught English at 2 branches of the State University of New York and at Rutgers University, New Brunswick campus. In 1984, she was appointed to an Albert Schweitzer Chair at the University at Albany, the State University of New York, from 1989 until her retirement in 2006. Morrison held the Robert F. Goheen Chair in the Humanities at Princeton. Now, I know this is going back and forth, between her life, like a bad episode of Back to the Future, but because I'm reading from different sites, different writers or different people who write these articles tend to highlight certain aspects of a person's life more so than others, because the articles can't be but so long, sometimes you just can't detail everything in one writing. That's why I go to different sites to give a more comprehensive look into a person's life, because different people are going to focus on different aspects of a person's life. And I try to include it all, but again, in the way I do it, I leave out some things as well. But enough of the exposition. Though based in the creative writing program at Princeton, Morrison did not regularly offer writing workshops to students after the late 1990s. In fact, that earned her some criticism. Rather, she has conceived and developed the prestigious Princeton Atelier, a program that brings together talented students with critically acclaimed, world-famous artists. Together, the students and the artists produce works of art that are presented to the public after a semester of collaboration. In her position at Princeton, Morrison used her insights to encourage not merely new and emerging writers, but artists working to develop new forms of art through interdisciplinary play and cooperation. At its 1979 commencement ceremonies, Barnard College awarded her its highest honor, the Barnard Medal of Distinction. The Barnard Medal of Distinction. Oxford University awarded her an honorary Doctorate of Letters degree in June 2005. Now, this is some of this is just a little touch into her political life. I'll actually get a little bit more into that. So just bear with me. In writing about the 1998 impeachment of Bill Clinton, Morrison wrote that since Whitewater, Bill Clinton had been mistreated because of his quote-unquote blackness. Years ago, in the middle of the Whitewater investigation, one heard the first murmurs, white skin notwithstanding, this is our first black president, blacker than any actual black person who could ever be elected in our children's lifetime. After all, Clinton displayed almost every trope of blackness. Single-parent household, born poor, working class, saxophone playing, McDonald's and junk food loving boy from Arkansas, which were her words. The phrase, quote unquote, our first black president, was adopted as a positive by Bill Clinton supporters. When the Congressional Black Caucus honored the former president at its dinner in Washington, D.C. on September 29, 2001, for instance, Rep. Eddie Bernice Johnson, Democrat of Texas, or from Texas, the chair told the audience that Clinton, quote, took so many initiatives he made us think for a while we had elected the first black president, end quote. Well, now I know that this is not Mrs. Morrison's actual sentiment. I understand the reason why she said it because I've read on her life, so I understand that. But I just want to interject for those who probably still believe that Clinton was the quote unquote first black president that we had in America, and in different demographics, different black people, say or give him the honor of being the first black president for different reasons. Some, like Ms. Morrison stated, because single parent household, born poor, working class, playing the saxophone, eating junk food. Other black people in other circles and or demographics say because he because of the fellatio incident with the young lady in the Oval Office, the ganja admission of not inhaling but smoking but not inhaling, and I think in conjunction with the saxophone and McDonald's stuff, this does not a black man make. Just let me be honest with you. I mean, these things don't make a person black. You understand? Especially the negative stuff. We have to stop associating what we are with the actions of other people, because doing certain things does not make you a black person. Living the experience, living the life, being black and being treated as a black person makes you black. Because the only way you can understand the struggle of a black person is to actually be black yourself or share those experiences. Most non-black people, especially white people, cannot understand that. And this is not any shade to anybody who's not black. But we have to stop assigning people quote unquote honorary blackness when we have so many black people that we can honor outside of giving someone this honorary title. President Bill Clinton was not black in any way, shape, or form. None of his actions said anything to me that made me think that he was black. Just keep in mind and remember, and I actually get into this in my my history of the police, or a brief history of the police series. Under Bill Clinton's administration, more black men were incarcerated for non-violent drug offenses, non-violent crimes, period, than any presidency prior to his. Just keep that in mind. He arrested more black people than any other president at the time in history. So please just keep that in mind. Now, sorry for the digression, I'll continue on. In the context of the 2008 Democratic primary campaign, Morrison stated to Time magazine, quote, "People misunderstood that phrase. I was deploring the way in which President Clinton was being treated, vis-a-vis the sex scandal that was surrounding him. I said he was being treated like a black on the street, allegedly already guilty, already a perp. I have no idea what his real instincts are in terms of race, In the Democratic primary contest for the 2008 presidential race, Morrison endorsed Senator Barack Obama over Hillary Clinton, though expressing admiration and respect for the latter. In April 2015, speaking of the deaths of Michael Brown, Eric Garner, and Walter Scott, 3 unarmed black men killed by white police officers, Morrison said, quote, "People keep saying we need to have a conversation about race. This is the conversation. I want to see a cop shoot a white unarmed teenager in the back, and I want to see a white man convicted for raping a black woman. Then, when you ask me, is it over? I will say yes." I think that's a pretty strong stance to take. Most people who are in the public eye in contemporary times usually don't speak out against these things. But actually, we've seen more and more people, black people, especially in the public eye, who are not afraid to basically be vocal about the current political and racial climate in this country. And we need more people like that. So I'll read some of this article, and then I'll end the video after this because I found it very interesting. And as usual, I'll leave the links to all the sources that I gathered information from on Mrs. Morrison in the description box so that you guys can go after me and do some research on her yourselves and become more familiar with this woman who's had a long and amazing career. She's actually a year older than my grandmother, actually. Anyway, Toni Morrison, fear of losing white privilege led to Trump's election, by Zeba Blay. I just wanted to give a sister credit for her article in the Huffington Post. Now, I'll read some of her article for you guys because I found it quite interesting. Toni Morrison has written a powerful essay in the aftermath of Donald Trump's election as President of the United States, and it gets right to the heart of why Trump won. In a piece titled, quote-unquote, "Mourning for Whiteness," from the November 21st print issue of The New Yorker, published online Monday, the Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist argues that Trump won due to the terror of privileged white men in the face of a rapidly diversifying country. And this was actually written last year in November. So, quote, "Under slave laws, the necessity for color rankings was obvious. But in America today, post-civil rights legislation, white people's conviction of their natural superiority is being lost," end quote, Morrison writes. Quote, "There are people of color everywhere, threatening to erase this long understood definition of America. And what then? Another black president? A predominantly black Senate? 3 black Supreme Court justices? The threat is frightening," end quote. As Morrison explains it, the subconscious fear of losing the comfort of being naturally better than, end quote, the comfort of not being followed in a department store, for instance, was a huge motivator for many white Americans. Morrison argues that white Americans, and particularly white men, are so afraid of the collapse of white privilege that they quote, "flock to a political platform that supports and translates violence against the defenseless as strength," end quote. She concludes, "On election day, how eagerly so many white voters, both the poorly educated and the well-educated, embraced the shame and fear sowed by Donald Trump, the candidate whose company has been sued by the Justice Department for not renting apartments to black people, the candidate who questioned whether Barack Obama was born in the United States, and who seemed to condone the beating of a Black Lives Matter protester at a campaign rally, the candidate who kept black workers off the floors of his casinos, the candidate who was beloved by David Duke and endorsed by the Ku Klux Klan." Morrison's take on the election is one that has been echoed by many other commentators, including Van Jones, who described it as a, quote, "white lash against a changing country," end quote. Now, I want to say that her take on Donald Trump, First off, it was very eloquently put. I could not have done a better job. This is very eloquently put. I believe that she is absolutely right. You know, what is it that makes white people want to continue to keep black people under their boobs, under their heels? What is it that makes them act so superior and treat us as if we are so inferior to them? Fear. Fear of what? That is the question. Is it fear of black people being in control? Because in all honesty, our anger with white people is in the way we are treated. If we are no longer treated poorly by white people, what black person truly cares about what white people do? None. We just want to be left alone for the most part. But for some reason they can't seem to do that because of their own fear. Where does this fear derive? Anyway, I'll leave the link to all of these, including this article, in the description box, so you guys can look into Miss Morrison. Again, a woman who has had a fantastic, phenomenal career, and her works have spanned decades. Civil rights movement, the Jim Crow era. I mean, the 80s crack epidemic. You know, the 90s era. I mean, and she's still alive and kicking to this day. So that is the end of Black History for February the 18th. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you guys look into Mrs. Morrison's life more, because she is a phenomenal person who deserves to be honored and by her people and have tributes such as this made to her. So this is Knowledge Self-Determination. Like, learn, and subscribe. I'm out. Peace.